We have yet another episode being done today for the past podcast. If you're tuning in, I do appreciate it. If you'd like to check out any previous episodes, go to Spreaker.com/Brite Podcast. Nonetheless, let's continue the show. Happy Friday. What is going on? Positive vibes to everyone. Past podcast. Closing out the week, or closing out the work week, and getting you all kind of rolling into the weekend. So, hope everyone's doing good. Hope everybody's routine's been pretty sane, pretty chill, pretty relaxed. I was on the fence and was a little indifferent as to what I was going to talk about today, and part of that was because I ain't gonna say I've talked about everything, but also, and I learned this yesterday between the podcast I did yesterday and one of my listeners listening to it, and I think that's gonna be how I utilize these and stuff episodes. And this is kind of gonna be a tip to me, and this is why I like doing podcasting, and this is where I'm learning how to become a better podcaster. Saturdays, I understand. If I don't get listeners, I fully get it. But I think what I'm going to start doing, and I've kind of told this to people, I've kind of made this addressed. On Saturdays, I'm going to try to change the routine with the episode. I'm not going to really tell y'all exactly how as of yet, but it's going to be a better way of doing it. That's truly the best way I can say it. What I will say, and what I do want to go into, I ain't gonna lie to y'all. Today I was literally on the fence of like, well, what topic do I talk about? Like, I've talked about quite a few topics, and there are a few topics that I've kind of held on to because I don't want to address them as of right now, strictly because I want to. It's a few people I know my twin has been, I don't say adamant, but she's definitely been encouraging and wanting to participate in a few episodes that I'm looking to discuss or address. So I can always hold those topics and just have them as ideas, because what will likely occur, because I've enjoyed doing this for April, I will probably be doing this for August. In August, it'll be a much different flow. It'll probably be more of a preparation and might take time away and do it. But just something to think about. And I'm sorry, as always, I do want to remember, because I keep forgetting. I forget to promote and share I won't say sponsors, but personal branding that I've worked on using with the podcast. So each week or each day, these episodes are recorded with the Blue microphone. I had the Blue Yeti. I mentioned it to a few people. I'm looking at getting a newer mic, but that's a down the road thing. I'm not looking to get the Yeti USB to XLR, but I'm looking to get the Blue microphone that's strictly XLR compatible. Now, most of you all who know or understand music and podcasts and recording kind of can have an idea or generalized understanding as to why. That's a bridge we'll cross when we get there. So I just want to share that. And also, podcasts are being recorded and shared and uploaded on Spreaker.com. I do have a pretty good listen base. My follow base is pretty decent, but I've mostly gotten shares and attention through folks just coming to the page, seeing the podcast, and then predominantly downloads, and gotten a few actual listens at the time of, because I know most times you got to catch them when you can. So I definitely understand that, and I have no knock against that whatsoever. I tried. Y'all know I tried, but I told y'all I will not down my podcast. So we're going to let this fan do what it does, and I'm just going to be who I am. But anyway, wow, it sounds like 100% louder. Sorry. Anyway, the topic today is a bit of a simple one, but it's a unique task for some of us. And I feel as though it's it's what gets you out there and what gets others aware of where you stand and what you're working on. To put it in the most simple and convenient manner possible, everything nowadays in life as a whole is all about networking when it comes to skills and crafts and talents. Matter of fact, I'll give this story, and this person may or may not listen, but I'll state it as a legit point. A friend of mine I've known since, well, she's known me since I was in middle school, and we've kind of usually kept in contact for quite a while. I've known her through her real estate flow, through her dating scenarios, etc., etc. Well, she hit me up a couple of days, actually yesterday, presenting a business opportunity, which personally didn't go for me, but it didn't mean that I can't get her brand out there to others. And literally, one of the key things that we don't understand or don't realize is that the only way that anyone's going to know you're doing something is that you have to share it. And it's literally the monster of the beast, I guess you can call it. Sorry. I've really, since I've done podcasting has forced me to network a lot more than I normally would, because what happens is no one really knows your skill or knows your craft if you're not telling anyone about it, let alone if you're not putting in the energy to say, hey, here's what I'm doing and here's why you should come check me out. Like most people, and y'all know I'm very, very, very direct and honest in my approach with certain things. With this podcast, it's a little bit of it's a balance of an imbalance, and here's why I say that. Some people don't do sports. Totally get that. So I take into account and look at the reality of I'm not going to get a lot of listeners to listen to my Saturday episode. Well, I'll get listeners on my Saturday episodes, but it's a different listening base because it's going to be folks who are in the sports. Whereas if it's something about the news, something about pop culture, if it's something that's a big story, then I can get those listeners and those followers in that regard. So I say that to you all, and I share that because everyone's target is going to be different as to what they're listening for or catching on to when it comes to the show. If I did networking tools, or if I did writing tools, I mean, I would target those who are writers, whether it's books, blogs, letters, whatever the case may be. The point I'm making and why I'm saying all of this is networking and promoting your craft or your skill requires you taking the biggest risk that no one else is going to do for you, and that's getting you out there. I've told this story to people. I've said this probably on a podcast before. I don't remember. But when it came to me doing podcasting, let alone social media for me in the beginning was hard. It was new. And I think when I say it was new, I don't mean like when it came like Facebook, I really didn't. Facebook was something to do at one time. But now that I'm older, now that there are different resources and different ways of knowing and getting to know people, I treat social media in a much different mindset, because you literally, I'll give the Twitter example for me to really put it into perspective. I opened my Twitter page. I was Brats82. Anybody that knew me, it was an easy link because everything was uniform in line. I was like, yeah, I got Brats82. Come check me out. Well, there was a point where I was changing my name. It was almost as if I was having an identity crisis, but I was also kind of being creative with it a little bit too, because a lot of people said, well, where's Brats82? Like, I can't find him. And I literally, like, lo and behold, like, I just changed my name and adjusted my brand over time with that page. I kept the same page. I never, like, opened new accounts. Well, until the podcast. But I just kind of I was Bright 82. I was Bright 82. I was Mr. 151 Boom. I was Loose Cannon BT. I was I was Silent Assassin B. I went through so many names to the point where by about the 8th or 9th name, like I had a silly moment. I know at one point, I made my name Try Me Wanna. That was a silly, that was a little silly thing. It was kind of a way of getting some attention. But eventually it all reverted back to, I'm gonna keep it as Bright 82. Now my name, I've kept it as Vic Ronald. I'm sorry, as Kenny Blankenship for a while, for the past couple of weeks, and that's just because it's my personal page. My personal page, I really don't get too animated about. Now my podcast page, whole different world. I literally, as most of you all remember, it was Bright Tape Podcast for a while. And I say this now, Bright Tape Podcast didn't work. And that it's kind of it's interesting that I'm talking about this. It's almost as though, like, I'm mentioning this on a networking perspective, but it's also in a branding sense too. Like, you have to know your brand, you have to craft your brand, you have to share your brand. Like, even if you're just I ain't gonna say a generic, if you're a regular everyday blogger and you blog because you like writing and you like sharing thoughts with others, doing that means that you have to make sure that the people who are reading your thoughts are going to understand, number one, what you're talking about, number two, where you're coming from, and three, if you really are hitting home for them. Now, granted, and this is the other part of it, kind of tying into it when it comes to networking and talking about things, you're not going to target every single person that follows you or that that's part of your fan base or your networking base or friend base or however you want to look at it. You're going to have some people who aren't going to be on that radar as to what you're talking about. And that's okay. That doesn't mean you have to hit home for them. I've told you all in a podcast before about when I do the inspirational quotes. Some of my inspirational quotes are for everyone. They're for, some people will read it and it's right on time. Others are kind of like, oh, okay, well, that won't really for me. And I don't expect every I don't expect every quote to be for everyone. That's why there are multiple days in a year. I may not do every single day, but for the most, you get my drift. Like, you can have a episode occur or have a show come up, and it doesn't have to be for specific people. So I'm saying this, I know this is, and I'm guilty of it, and I'm still, this is where the adjustment comes into play. You have to know how to network and catch those whose attention you have to catch. I was hearing someone say, I was hearing Ashley, like I said, I always refer to Ashley Taylor's podcast all the time. But I was hearing in one of her podcasts about the hashtag limit. Didn't pay any attention about it. This is where networking helps. I would do my Saturday episodes, and when I got to my Saturday episodes, I'm like, well, why can't I put all these hashtags? And I'm sitting there not understanding until I literally one day counted how many hashtags I had. I was like, oh, there really is a limit. You really only can do 30 per post. So it's a part of the learning curve. It's part of the genuine, I wasn't listening that day, I must have clocked out, whatever the case may be, however you want to put it. So when things are being said that can help you, or that might, I don't even want to say surprise you, but can kind of give you a unique eye towards something, take heed to it, because it could be something that can truly and honestly help you in the long haul. And I think sometimes we forget that, but we're reminded about that. So networking, it's kind of almost like it's kind of like a full circle, like 6 degrees of separation, because, and here's how you gotta look at it. By networking, it gets you out there and get your brand made aware by others. Others who are made aware of your brand may see something that you're not seeing. They may be able to present ideas that you wouldn't think about, and then that also ties into your fan base and your listen base of folks who may or may not know what you're doing. Because no one's really going to know who you are by just doing something. And that's it. And I'll give this example to really hit home so it can make sense to people. If you're drawing and you have drawings that are just sitting at home, no one knows about them. You may discuss it with people, but you aren't actually, taking pictures of them, showing them off to people. You're not sharing them online. You're not saying, hey, here's what I got. Here's what I'm working on. Then no one really knows that you're an artist other than through word of mouth. Word of mouth works. Word of mouth can be golden, but word of mouth can also be a hit or miss, because some people this will probably be the calmest and the clearest way of saying this. Anytime you're doing a business or you're doing a craft and finances are involved, not everyone's going to support your brand. And that's a hard thing to look at, but it's a reality that you have to deal with. A friend of mine now, one of her close buddies does photography. She's in her craft for business. So she's making she has to make money to make ends meet. So it's not like she's trying to get cut short on what she's doing. So that don't mean I come along like, hey, I'm trying to look to get some work done. You think you can hook me up? Like, give me a deal since I know so and so. People don't want to hear that. Most people want to hear, look, these are my rates. This is what I'm able to do. Are you in or are you out? And you just kind of go with it from there. So I'm emphasizing, and I know I'm emphasizing the importance of the networking portion, as well as the branding, as well as the sharing, as well as the getting out of the shell portion, to say, let others know what you're doing, but don't let what you're doing be hidden to the wrong eye. Because it could take the right person to see what you have going on and possibly share it. I had somebody the other day, which I'm still waiting to hear how that's gonna go, because I'm looking forward to it. I'm all about challenges. If anybody hasn't learned that with me by now, someone was asking if I knew about esports. Halfway read the message, and they was like, "Well, do you know?" I'm thinking, "Do you know about sports?" Yeah, I know about sports. I'm in the sports, of course. That's my podcast. But he said esports. I was like, oh, esports, and I had to really channel in and remember. Yeah, I've kept up with esports. The difference for me now is because there are so many E-League and esports tournaments, like Dreamland, like CEO Dreamland, DreamHack is coming, Combo Breaker. It's so, and those are, so you have all your, and so this is like esports 101, and I'm throwing this in as a wild card. You have your big tournaments that have big prizes that are done annually, and I mean, all of your other smaller tournaments are done annually as well. But the bigger ones, you get folks who come into the United States from China and Japan and other places to play Smash Brothers, Mortal Kombat, FIFA, Gears of War, Street Fighter, games of that sort. They come from everywhere to play those matches and play against folks to compete for top prizes. And it's like for top prizes, top ranking, points in that specific system for the game, things of that sort. So, and all of that, and that again ties into networking. Like, if you don't know, if your sponsor, like say I'm a gamer for esports team. Matter of fact, since I talked about them on the podcast a while back, let's say I play for Echo Fox and I'm a Street Fighter player. Echo Fox is going to help me, and I'm going to help myself in learning and knowing, hey, this tournament's coming up for Combo Break, well, for CEO in July. I want to make sure that I'm there to participate in that tournament, because I could make, I could get some money as well as possibly place and get some, good points for myself. And also it gets my brand out there and it gets my team out there, because let's face it, with hundreds of thousands of people doing podcasting, blogging, drawing, photography, everything, You have to get your umbrella known first, and then you also have to get your personal brand known within that umbrella. So in my case, I have to network heavy enough to say, hey, podcasting is this thing that's not as scary as it looks. It's pretty fun and it's pretty chill, because for me, I mean, it's literally, I ain't gonna say I'm talking to myself, but it's more so I'm sitting in front of a microphone. I'm talking to you all as listeners, sharing thoughts of things that I personally have experienced or have gone through or know about and can relate to. And I'm sharing it with the masses and getting others to understand, hey, it's not as hard as it comes off as sounding or hearing or understanding or seeing, but you just have to know kind of the ins and outs and the basic things about it. I talk about this numerous times as well. When I first was doing podcasting, and now, like with April hitting, and then March, it was kind of talked about with me a little bit too. People wanted to kind of get an idea, like, hey, I see you doing a podcast. Like, what, how does it work, or what do you need to get? And like people have told me, I tell you what I've done for myself and what's worked for me. Everyone's option and everyone's choices are going to change, so you just have to kind of find your preferences. At the end of the day, you're mainly trying to be known in your craft. Now, granted, like I said, there are hundreds. When I say hundreds, there are hundreds of thousands of people who do podcasting. Everyone's podcast is different. My podcast is sports. My podcast is techie. My podcast is music, games, things of that sort. They have podcasts about medical related issues. They have podcasts about financing. They have podcasts about stock market. Does that mean that I don't support those who do stock market podcasts? Absolutely not. Their podcasts are the reason that I'm able to podcast. Because if you have 40 people giving you different stories sports related, each sports related podcaster may give a different eye or a different ear towards what you would like to hear or talk or have addressed when it comes to podcasting. So to close out, because I know I'll sit and like ramble and circle this conversation, networking when it comes to podcasting, or networking when it comes to social media, or networking when it comes to businesses or branding is very important. And I'm going to give this final story and then I'm going to close out. Yesterday, I was preparing to go to work, just kind of in my little routine of getting some things, kind of getting myself together, or whatever. I was, I paid for my purchases, made my transaction, and there was a lady there who gave me a card. And she actually had her cards, there for pickup to be, if you need help or you're interested, give me a call. And she happened to be there, and she was like, hey, that's my card. You want to pick up a card? If I really appreciate it. I'm, doing financial assistance. And I'm like, all right, cool. And I appreciate it. And it made me think of two things. Number one, she's taking that next step and getting the attention. And then two, I have folks who I know who do financial help, and they do their financial help as well. Their financial help is more so they do it, they present it through Facebook. They have their page, they have their books, they have their media. But you also have to go that extra step and get out of your comfort zone a little bit. And I'm not saying they don't, because like I said, I don't know their full branding and presentation of things. I'm not in their routine. I'm still trying to get the web page finalized, let alone trying to get the between the web page, the domain, just everything, trying to get it all pushed together. So I'm not knocking, I'm not judging whatsoever, because I know it's not easy. But I just share all of this and just address this with you all to say that no one's going to know what you're capable of if you don't tell anyone. So that's my final thought and my message I leave you all with, because I know I said I was going to close after I gave the story, but of course it turned into another story. But that's neither here nor there, and I know I talk a little fast, and there's the ankle pop of the day. But thank you all for tuning in. We got tomorrow's our infamous show. Tomorrow's show, I'm gonna, like I said, there was night one of the draft last night, so I'm kind of giving you a little bit of teaser. got a album release that I'm possibly going to talk about, and some other things are in store. So definitely you'll want to tune in. And until next time, y'all take it easy. We've done it once again. We finished yet another episode. Appreciate everyone for tuning in. If you're not following on Twitter or on Facebook, please look up Pass Podcast. That's PASS Podcast, one word. I am accepting inquiries for any topics or concerns at passpodcastbt@gmail.com. And just continue to support. I appreciate all the support and everyone listening and tuning in. Until next time, y'all take it easy.